The sun has set on the Sun Devils. It's set on the Seminoles. It's set on the Sun Bowl and set on the 2019 season. And as Jason Parker just said a few minutes ago off air, this is pretty much a microcosm of Florida State's 2019 season. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, bringing you Florida State talk each and every week. We got big game James Coleman on the line from fifth quarter college football. We also have, yes, the aforementioned Jason Parker from Chop Chat. The Sun Bowl's in the books from El Paso, and Florida State goes down 20-14. Other than football related, how you guys doing?
I mean, I was doing fine up until James threw that pick six there. I was doing really great. I mean, not a little too happy there. But, yeah, first of all, credit to you for that open. That was solid. That's why you're Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It's like you spent some time there on that one. No, honestly, and you said this off camera when you said, man, that was a tough one. I mean, to me, and this sounds like a jaded FSU fan from the 2019 season, but honestly, we fell behind early. We came back, gave our fans false hope, and then we blew it. I mean, that is literally that's the Boise State game. That's the Virginia game. That's the Wake Forest game. That's a lot of hope that things are going to be okay, and then they don't. But like we said off camera, and I know, James, I'm gonna give you the court more on this one as we go on here for the next hour or so. But I'm pretty glad to see Kendall Briles out the door. I think Kendall Briles, don't let the door hit you in the you-know-what on the way out. You pretty much were a waste of time for the last year, and I hope you enjoy being 2-10 in Arkansas. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I guess just going back to your original question, I'm just glad that 2019 is over, much like the FSU season. 2019 has had ebbs and flows. I'm super excited about 2020, being able to do more in media, more with you, Mark, more with fifth quarter, and hopefully see FSU come back to some semblance of competent football. As Jason discussed, this football game was definitely a microcosm of the season. But I watched the bowl game with a little bit different intent. Obviously, you always want to win every game. But what I was trying to look for is, do I see anything that can give me some hope for the 2020 season? And I'm not going to lie, I saw some bright spots. I saw some things that with health, with some additions from the 2019 class guys that didn't play, and with some of the additions to the current 2020 class, there's some things that can at least get you excited about football. Is it a championship program? Each season you see some different things that will make you want to know or know more. But as of right now, I'm looking at 2020 with a little bit more optimism than I looked with 2019. Now, the sky's the limit when you're 6-7. So I mean, 8-5 a regular season is a huge improvement over a 6-6. But at the end of the day, I'm ready to ring in the new year, and the White Mike Norvell era is officially upon us, and I'm ready to see it.
Let's give credit where it goes here. Herm Edwards, Arizona State, they won the game. Congratulations to them. It was a great job, hard-fought game. I think what's going to frustrate, and I'm the frustrated FSU fan who was still hoping we get to 7-6, hoping we'd avoid that back-to-back losing seasons. First time we've had back-to-back seasons since that 4-year run from 73 to 76. What frustrates me is the fact that and I'll say this, the better team did not win this game. Florida State gave this game to Arizona State. There's no way you can say 6 turnovers. The pick six there is what decided this game. But there was, the Terry fumble there at the end of the game. Blackman having a horrible game as far as 4 turnovers go. So that's the frustrating part there as the current FSU fan, is wanting that 7th win, and the fact that Arizona State, you can say, did they earn that win? I don't think they did, but ultimately FSU, what happened is what happened. And I think Tamarian Terry, I think there's going to be a lot of people who, I've already got my Twitter feed over here, and there's people ripping on him, and you shouldn't rip on him, because without him, you don't have that 91-yard touchdown. Without him, we're not even in this game for many points on offense there. So, Tamarian Terry, I think it's a good thing that he's going to come back. Marvin Wilson's going to come back. We'll talk about that as this hour goes on. But, he will come back. He will bounce back from that. I think the biggest question from this game, and we'll talk about this as it goes on, is James Blackman. I think James Blackman disappointed a lot of people as this went on. Yeah, he threw for 224 yards. Yeah, he had the long touchdown pass. But here's the question. Did Jordan Travis do enough running the ball? I mean, he was 2 for 3 for 2 yards passing. I think he has to improve there. But did he do enough to make there a decent quarterback competition in the 2020 spring football era?
I don't think the quarterback for 2020 isn't on the roster right now.
Really?
And you can Mike Norvell said a lot of things since he's been here. He said that he's going to get 3 quarterbacks, 2 high school and a grad transfer. Then he made his rounds on FSU podcast, very dynamic. I love the way he speaks. And he said he's not going to get a grad transfer. I'll believe that when I see it. I don't believe that James Blackman nor Jordan Travis are the answer. Now, what I can Blackman be rehabbed? And that's going to take a lot of work, and it's not necessarily the kid's fault. I mean, it's his fault because he played it, but that's what happens when you have 3 different coordinators, 3 different quarterback coaches, 3 different philosophies. And that kind of in from the full gamut. You also don't have we haven't seen an offensive strategy, an offense that you really know, like these are the go-to things with it. And I'm disappointed in both Taggart, seeing what he did in Oregon and seeing that it was nothing similar to what he did here at Florida State, where it was more of a power type spread, more of what you, believe it or not, more of what you see in the Big Ten when you use your tight ends like fullbacks, you run the power G, you just run it out of a spread system. And then also the Kendall Briles, like this, we were sold the Baylor philosophy, but when you really step back and you look at when Baylor was really, really cooking, and Kendall got those accolades his first year as a coordinator, but that second year is when also you could blame him on the rape scandal and those things too. But he went 8-5, and anytime, if you look at his resume at Baylor, anytime he played a defense with a pulse, you're talking about 7 points. You're talking about this. But when I'm looking at this box score, and this is not indicative of an offensive genius. First quarter, 0 points. Second quarter, 0 points. Fourth quarter, 0 points. Third quarter, he had 14. That's Boise when you had a half. That's all these games. And yes, it's great when you can have one dominating quarter, but football, regardless of, I don't know if people have made this more complicated and don't really understand the little nuances. And that's what I love about playing for Coach Bowden. Is Coach Bowden used the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, and he broke football down to such the minutia. Like, if you gotta win every quarter, you gotta win every rep. If you score more points than the other team, you win. And I look at Herm Edwards, and I think he was one of my favorite coaches, even though he never really truly was a great NFL coach, but he was always great when you hear him speak. And I got a chance to meet him when I was covering the Under Armour All-American games, kind of when I was being a novice. But he's a guy who takes each play, and he's a defensive guy, and that's why you see the 6 turnovers. Any game where you can focus on not turning the ball over, playing great defense, time of possession, then you're all of a sudden in a situation where you're never behind. And even in this game, when FSU took the lead, you never felt like they snapped the neck of the opponent, and they were only kicking field goals. This is a game where FSU's defense, who's been the Achilles heel, everybody's put crap on Harlan Barnett's name the entire time he's been here. But he went out not giving up a touchdown to a dynamic quarterback and freshman Jaden Daniels, who all FSU fans should know, we really wanted him up until everybody was all in for Sam Howell. So I look at this game and I'm trying to figure out, again, like I said, the silver lining, because I know this isn't going to be our offense, not anywhere near from what, based upon Mike Norvell's history at Memphis. The offense will look different. The only thing similar would be the lack of a huddle, but he doesn't have to run a play he doesn't have to snap the ball 3 seconds upon putting the ball, the center putting the ball on the hand on the ball. It's I'm going to get you into situational matchups, and I'm going to I'm going to exploit your weaknesses. And I've never seen that in this Kendall Briles fashion. Maybe he'll do it at Arkansas. He did it at, it seems like he did it at FAU, Houston, and other places. But this last game, actually, to use Houston as an example, this reminded me of him versus Army in Houston's last game this time last year. It was a guy who you're watching this and you're like, wow, that hopefully this is an aberration. This is not going to be what comes to FSU. And unfortunately, it is. Lack of getting Terry involved until the end of the game. Lack of running the ball. Like you've got Sheffield in his first game popping off 4 and 5 yard runs. Like that's plus. That's a positive. Keep doing that until they show you they can stop it. Like having called, like when I used to coach, and it wasn't anywhere on this level, but and even when I played, we used to call find the duck, circle the duck. And that's the defensive player that you're really beating up on, and you just make them have a long night. You don't have to make this overly complicated. When they attacked and they went vertical, good things happen. Slant and go on Terry, slants with Terry. You got even Keith Gavin's making plays. You've got these things, but you're to call plays. So this is why FSU fans are like, James, it's really interfering with the offensive play calls. No, it's not. It's looked the exact same since Willie left. The only common denominator is our offensive guru who shuts down. Gurus are gurus. They can dial it up. It's why people think, because I cover everybody. I don't. FSU is my alma mater. That's my heart. I bled on that field. I sweat on that field. Scored in both those end zones. But when I talk about Dan Mullen, even as simple as his offense is, he will scheme up and exploit your weaknesses. There's no point in a game outside, even when they played LSU, there was no point when I'm like, oh, they're just out of it. They just don't. It's times when they don't have cats. We have better cats or just as good of cats as Arizona State. But what I did like, again, going back to it, I liked what I see in the passing game. Again, to Blackman's, for all the Blackman's faults, he got the ball to 6 different targets. He spreads the ball around. They finally figured out, hey, let's get the ball to Terry. The running game was good. So now if you get a healthy laborer or you bring in these other guys, Sheffield has shown that he's a good 3 or 4 back. He's not going to be your starter. But when I see 224 yards on the ground, you know what that tells me? That tells me that the offensive line isn't as bad as what we say. That tells me that the scheme makes the offensive line look bad. And when you try to make players fit something that's not to their strengths, all you're asking for is sacks. All you're asking for is them to look bad. Play to their strengths. And then what you'll see is, the crazy part is, when you're running an RPO, it should look better. The ball should get out. It's run pass option. If the run's not there, you know what you do? You throw it. It is supposed to be quick. And when the quick game is popping, that's when this offense is going to be going good. But hopefully Norvell, these guys can come in, get discipline, get pride, because this offseason needs to be a psychological and physical restructuring and reshaping.
Now, I do have a serious question before we turn things back over to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Now, you played the game, like you said, you played the game. I was in the stands and on the sidelines watching you and covering you, because we went to FSU at the same time. But I'm asking you a question. I'm going to take a break from ripping on Kendall Briles, because we could rip on him for a while. The fact that this team had 470 yards of offense and had 14 points. Meanwhile, they gave up. And we talked about this. Harlan Barnett on defense coached a guy. Harlan Barnett coached like a guy who's still looking for a job. Kendall Briles coached like a guy who already has a job and didn't really give a damn about the outcome of this game. And that's the frustrating thing as an FSU fan. But I will ask you this question. After that third interception, and I'm going to focus back on James Blackman for a moment, because this has been the struggles with James Blackman this season. And to a fault, we can almost say that there was a little bit of staying with James Blackman when he was making mistakes. And this has gone on through the course of the season. There was the same thing last year when we talked about it with DeAndre Francois, and a little bit the year before with James Blackman. Obviously, that was a different time period because he, under Jimbo Fisher, when there was really no other option. After that third interception, would you have still stuck with James Blackman at that point? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
My radio partner, and he's a quarterback guru, coach tons of guys that are going to college and a few that are going to the NFL. He says this: if your quarterback throws 3 interceptions or more, it's not the quarterback's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's the offensive coordinator's fault for not pulling him after the second interception. So you allowed it. So that's basically what happened. You allowed for him to continue to do that. Now we can say it's because Jordan Travis can't throw the ball. Well, you didn't need to run. Like, you really didn't need to throw the ball. You could have. I joked on Twitter saying, run the veer. Go out there and run the wing tee. You're doing whatever you want to do with the run. Like, Jordan Travis makes the defender have to be honest, and he can either hand it or keep it going. And that's really what it comes down to. But when I look at this, and again, I use this our rivals as examples. And us in Miami have a very similar situation. It's the coordinator and the quarterback's coach that is the problem with the offense. And this is the reason why I'm going to say this. Look at Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Florida had Felipe Franks start. Felipe Franks goes down. They bring in Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask can run the basic principles of this offense to a T, along with things that he does better. So what that means is there's always a wrinkle that Dan Mullen has with Kyle Trask out there. You're going to practice for their base, but there are things that he does that Felipe can't do. You bring in Emory Jones. Emory Jones can run the base principles of Dan Mullen's offense, and there are things that he can do that Kyle Trask can't do. So that's a wrinkle. But the common denominator is that every quarterback has similarities and looks competent when they're out there. There is not that much of a dramatic drop-off. Bring in Florida State, and they got better as the season went on. Show me where you see James Blackman got better from week 1 to week 13. Even with 15 days. Like, I don't see a better quarterback.
I'm going to disagree.
Like,
I'm going to disagree with you on that one point there, because I covered the team in the Orange Bowl. I covered that Gators team in the Orange Bowl. We saw that Gators team. I think some of that has to do.
No. That was a crappy game. That was he reverted back. Yeah, I give you that.
But I'll give you that. But my point there is that I think you have to give Trask credit for looking great and doing his job when he's supposed to. He looked great against Florida State. He looked great against South Carolina. He looked okay, though, against Georgia and against LSU. And I think Kyle Trask will have a good year in 2020. And I think, FSU is going to have their troubles with Florida. But I think Kyle Trask gets a lot of credit for looking great against teams he's supposed to look great against. And that the people kind of overlook the fact that he looked average against Georgia. He looked okay. He looked better against LSU than he did against Georgia. And then I think Virginia, he went back a spot against Virginia. And I think some of that has to be a credit to Virginia's defense. But if I could point out one second here, I don't know, James, if you can see the screen here where it says stop blaming Briles and blame execution. So my question would be, and this isn't so much for James, this is more for the critics. So we can blame Briles when there's screw-ups on offense, but we still want to blame Willie Taggart even though he hasn't been the head coach for the last 4 games. I think there's a segment of the FSU fan base that kind of doesn't get it. Kendall Briles was an epic letdown this season as offensive coordinator, and I think it goes back to the same way we hyped up Willie Taggart before the 2018 season. Oh, Willie Taggart's going to be the key. We're going to turn this around. We're going to be just fine after what we had at the end of the Jimbo Fisher era. And then we did the same thing with Kendall Briles. Oh, Kendall Briles is going to turn around this offense after the offense looked like hot garbage last year. No, Briles was an epic failure as the offensive coordinator, and it's time we own up to it. Does some of that blame go to Willie Taggart for hiring him? Absolutely, 100%. And I'm sure Willie Taggart would be the first person to admit it. But the blame on this game, and I think James hit the nail right in the head, this blame has to go towards an offensive coordinator who had an offense get 470 yards and 14 points. An offensive coordinator who said, hey, let's keep putting this quarterback in after he, by that point, had been involved in 4 turnovers on offense. James hit the nail on the head. The fact that we were still trying to do something with a passing game when the running game was working. We were a rushing team that we were in the 100s this year of rushing, and we ran for 224 yards on 51 carries. We were averaging over 4 yards a carry. 3 carries and we're on a first down, the way we were running the ball in this game. So there comes a point where, and James hit the nail on the head, keep it simple, stupid. If it's working for you, it doesn't have to be sexy, but we could have left the Sun Bowl with a win if we had actually played the game we were playing for roughly that third quarter, and I'd say probably the start of the fourth quarter. If we keep that game going, we are leaving as Sun Bowl champs. Instead, we tried to get sexy, and we're leaving as Sun Bowl losers.
To James' point, as soon as he talked about rushing the football and maybe the offensive line's not quite as bad as we thought, I quickly went to Arizona State's rush defense, 116 yards per game, 22nd in the nation. So they ran it against a pretty good rush defense. I know that they were missing 2 players in the linebacking core, but a good rushing defense. Not that they play the toughest football in the Pac-12, but it's still a Power 5 team that is only giving up $116 on the ground, and you take away James Blackman's sack numbers, and the rushing numbers are even more impressive.
It's something else I want to bring up about this is like Arizona State obviously didn't have their dynamic running back. Florida State now didn't have a scholarship running back. So you put up 224 yards on the ground without a scholarship running back. That's what I'm suggesting is that there are some pieces here that if Mike Norvell can get these guys to buy into, like you have every reason to be optimistic. Now defensively, the defense literally shut them down, or from without, there was no offensive touchdowns without Marvin Wilson, without, like him or love him, Stanford Samuels III, without some key guys. Now Durden played very well. Robert Cooper played very well. They actually got, and then you also think about Robinson. Janoris Robinson played well. He's coming back. You have Joshua Kando coming back. Now, there's some things that got to be disciplined. And actually, I'm glad Darren Hill brought that up. Is we got to stop these chop blocks. It's really simple. Like, just don't, like, if you're supposed to cut. You're not double teaming on quick passes. So you got to get rid of these undisciplined, silly mistakes, and that could come with guys just may not be smart enough to play in the system, and you got to process guys out. And I hate talking about that, but that's just the reality. And it's something that if with a Coach Storm, who I believe the strength and conditioning coach is the Luca Brasi. For any of my people who follow The Godfather, the book, not just because the movie, he was had a very small part in the movie, but Luca Brasi was the guy who, the hitman, the guy who, when you didn't do what the Godfather needed you to do, he was the guy you had to come see. And that's what the strength and conditioning coach is supposed to do. You got to have fear be instilled, as well as guys consistently do it. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen under Taggart. And I'm not going to go on and on bashing Taggart or Briles or these other guys, but I just believe that there's some pieces here. And again, so when I look at the secondary, you have Travis Jay, who is a much heralded prospect who was flagged. He should be clear next year. You bring him with a Demore Tate. Now you add that with Akeem Dent and some of these, and Asante Samuel, some of these other guys that are coming in. Now all of a sudden you got a really young, solid secondary. These young bucks at linebacker, that the Gant, the Kalen DeLoach's, the Jaleel McCrae's, combined with Dix, a lot of these other guys who are coming in. Now all of a sudden you got a linebacker core that's flipped, and you got some fast, some speed, and they shifted to a 4-down, which I believe is really what the strength of this roster is they weren't running the 3-4 defense that Harlan Barnett's not comfortable calling. So you come in, you bring in Coach Fuller from Memphis, and he's going to run a 4-down hybrid. Sometimes it'll be 3 linebackers, sometimes it'll be the 4-2-5 that FSU fans under Jimbo Fisher are familiar with. But you're going to be able to see a little bit more pressure put on, and that's really what makes me have a little bit more faith, because the defense, on top of not being able to score points, but the defense during times was not able to stop anybody. But that defense did not lose this game. That defense was put in really bad situations where they consistently rose to the forefront.
That's the defense you saw. That to me, and I'll say this without exaggeration, that's the closest defensive performance I have seen to, I would probably argue, the 2016 finale against Florida, when we just stifled Florida before heading off into the Orange Bowl. I think that was the closest defensive performance you've seen there. I think what you saw today was the conclusion of the, I'm going to say it like this, the laziness of the end of the Fisher era and the ineptitude of the Willie Taggart era. That's what you saw out there today. There's no other reason that you have a 470-yard production on offense and you get 14 points. There is no reason that you have a defense that allows less than 300 yards, that holds their passer, and credit Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels is a stud, and that's going to be somebody in the next 2 years who will be, if he can keep up that numbers and keep up the way he performed today and the way he performed this season, his name will be on the Heisman list starting next year. Book that right there. There's no reason you hold him to, I want to get the exact number, hold him to under 200 yards passing. He was their leading rusher. You have 195 yards passing, 87 yards rushing, 282 yards of offense that you hold that team to, and we are still losing this game. That is the last 4 years culminating in the laziness of the end of the the laziness in the end of the Jimbo Fisher era of we're a national championship winning program. We should just win automatically because we won a title in 2013, and the ineptitude of a Willie Taggart era of a coach who probably shouldn't have gotten the job that quickly. And I love Willie Taggart. I wish him well at FAU. I think he will do well there, but he probably shouldn't have gotten the FSU job so quickly. That's just a fact. And James hit the nail on the head here. What we saw today was just the culmination of this. It's over. There's nothing we can do about it. It sucks. Does it suck that we are 6-7? That we have two back-to-back 7-loss seasons, 2 losing seasons for the first time since my parents were students at FSU back in the early to mid 70s? Yes, it sucks. But now we have to go on from this point. And sorry to disappoint the one person who said I came here for the meltdown. There's no meltdown because this is what we saw. This is exactly what we saw the entire season. So it's kind of like, and it sucks to say it like this, but it's kind of like, this is what happens. So from this point, we need to focus on 2020. So from this point, this is now it's on Mike Norvell. Now it's completely everything's in the past. Completely everything, whatever Odell does, interim coach, is in the past. It's now on to 2020. It's the questions from this point. Is James Blackman? Damn, somebody's shooting outside here. Good Lord. The question is, does James Blackman, where do we stand with the quarterback situation? Does Jordan Travis get a decent run? Why can't Jordan Travis throw the ball? At running back, you have Cam Akers. We were able to get Marvin Wilson back. We were able to get Tamari Terry back. Has Cam Akers signed anything yet? Maybe if he hasn't yet, who knows? I know.
He's not coming. He's in California working out right now.
I know, but we can always have that hope. As an FSU grad, there's always that hope he's going to come back. But it's the questions here. And I think, you have to get positive. The class for 2020, from what he signed for Norvell kind of said it during the CBS interview today. For what he did in 10 days, you got to give him credit for that. For whatever he did to get Tamari Terry and Marvin Wilson to decide to come back, I think he needs to get mad credit for that as of this point. But I think we also, once again, we've said this before, we have to come into this season. We can't do with Mike Norvell what we did with Willie Taggart, because I think we are some of the reason to blame that Willie Taggart got fired after 21 games, because we came in expecting him to be the Messiah. And I think it's because we were the jilted ex-girlfriends with the way Jimbo Fisher left us. And we thought Willie Taggart's going to bring us to the top. And we didn't realize that FSU wasn't as good as they had been in the past. They were a bad team that Willie Taggart was taking over, a junker of a car, and expected to drive it like a Porsche. Right now, we have to say, okay, Mike Norvell, can you go 8-4 this season? Are we going to be comfortable with an 8-4 season? I'm fine with that. If you're telling me right now, Florida State will go 8-4 and split the Miami and Florida games, probably get killed by Clemson again, and maybe go to, the Camping World Bowl. Maybe sneak into the Gator Bowl up in Jacksonville. Maybe as an outside shot, if Clemson goes to the playoff, there's an outside shot that Florida State could sneak into the Orange Bowl as the top-rated ACC team, depending on how the losses work out. I'll take that right now, but we just have to be realistic. We can't sit here and say, Mike Norvell, you you have to be 10-2. You have to be 11-1, because then what happens is when we go 8-4, we're going to be the disappointed, pissed off fans, and we did it to ourselves.
It's a crazy tough non-conference schedule for FSU in 2020
Right.
with West Virginia, even though they weren't good this past year. They're typically a decent team at Boise State, so got to go on the road this time against the Broncos, and then, of course, Florida.
Right. And Samford. Let's be honest.
Forgot about Samford.
Samford was beating us in the fourth quarter when they played us in 2018. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Samford also has a quarterback that's in the NFL. So, I mean, like, again, that Samford team, which I told people during that time, again, and this is where us, and I'll put myself in it, but us in the media sometimes just look at it, and they're FCS program, and they should be they should be an easier team to beat.
Right.
But this is a team that took Ole Miss, that should have beat Ole Miss with that quarterback 2 years previous. They also had a wide receiver that was really, really good. No excuses on it. It didn't work. It's like they didn't do it. But when I look at Boise, when I look at the schedule from this season, again, just looking at what happened, Boise is a 4-minute offense away from beating them. Like, that means Kendall Briles just slow it down or score any points in the second half, and you beat them. Defense make a play. That could be the difference in coaching and discipline. Wake Forest, same thing. Virginia, same thing. Miami was completely, at that point, the locker room was lost. Complete meltdown. I personally think the fix was in, but I'm grateful because it helped us make a decision, a very difficult decision that hindsight we all know needed to make happen, even though a lot of people liked Willie. But I mean, I just rattled off three extra wins, and that puts you at 9 wins in a completely different bowl game. Now, Clemson is Clemson. Florida is really good. They'll lose some wide receivers, but they've got some really good big time transfers that are supposed to be coming in. If they can get cleared, they'll be good, along with a pass rusher that's coming in from Georgia that's better than the guy that they had from Louisville. So I look at this stuff, and Miami won. Miami also has their own set of issues that they're dealing with that are very similar to Florida State's. But I don't see this schedule being what everybody has. But then again, I have to look at it from we're a 6-7 ball club. But I think with Coach Norvell coming in, and I want to make sure we understand what the discipline mean. I think when we say discipline, we mean execution, because I don't know if you guys have looked or done the research, but Memphis is one of the more heavily penalized teams too. But the good teams typically have a lot of penalties. But you see they execute a lot. They executed a lot better. And just pure execution and attention to detail make this Florida State team an 8-9 win team. And a healthy Florida State makes them an 8-9 win team as well. So I'm not going to go with the sky's falling. I'm at least happy that we're going to a bowl game as opposed to not going to a bowl game. That feels a lot better. But I will say this season was very disappointing, and I want to see if Mike Norvell is able to coach anywhere near as well as he's been able to. I won't say recruit, because he just kept the class intact. I like the Purdy, the Tay Rottenberger were pretty good as well. But as far as recruiting, I wait until the class is finalized to really give a pure assessment. He's very active, and the staff is active, but he put together a pretty good staff, and not necessarily on field. The on field staff I like. I'm not gaudy as everybody else is, but his off the field staff is damn good. And if that's the kind of support that I believe that the guys see, because it's not just about them buying in, but it's about the administration finally buying in. Because the consistent thing, believe Tag deserved it or you don't believe Tag deserved it. But Jimbo complained about a lot of the same things that Tag complained about, if not more. And I've seen off-field hires happen faster than I've ever seen them happen at Florida State. I know for a fact there was one off-field hire that literally took 4 months to happen last year, or in Tag's first year. So the fact that he can come in and hire boom, boom, boom off the field guys off the rip shows me that we're willing to do whatever is necessary. And I believe that he sat both Marvin, that Coach Fuller and Coach Norvell sat Marvin down and showed him how he can make himself a top 15 pick if he executes in the system the way they did. Because the one thing I'll give Memphis's D-line is they attack. They are very aggressive at attacking the passer. That was amazing what they did against Penn State. Even though Penn State could have just ran down their throat, but get sacks, you go to the league. And what they probably showed Terry with Dilly and him is, hey, this is what we've shown in the past. This is how you take yourself from right now, the mid-tier wide receivers in this class, to putting yourself in the top tier. And because money talks. That's what you go to Florida State for. You don't go to Florida State like for what I believe in the last 4 years. And I'm not saying these guys aren't any good, but I believe a lot of these guys are just going to Florida State because with the expectation that the helmet and the logo puts fear in people, like it used to, and it doesn't. But when I was there, and guys went to Florida State to dominate and have an opportunity to go to the NFL. I can't say that these guys are doing that because of a lot of the excuses that I hear them use. I wasn't bought in. This guy doesn't like me. This guy, I don't care. Billy Sexton told me all the time, I like you, but I love my wife. My job is to bring in as many 18 to 22-year-olds as I can that are going to execute what I need to do, because the fact is a lot of you guys are going to flake out and the cream will rise to the top. And that's what's been missing. A lot of guys have been saying, oh, I was promised this. Listen, man, that's recruiting. Everybody promises kids playing time. But if you want it, you go out there and you earn it. And I say that's a kid that goes to Clemson. I say that's a kid that goes to Miami or Florida. Bottom line is they're going to sell you that you're the next best thing. But when you get there, it's your job and your obligation to yourself to become the next best thing. Nothing's handed to you.
James, I'm going to touch on that in one moment because what you just said goes with the comment on the screen. I'm going to touch on that in 1 second. First of all, I do disagree with you on the one point there where you talked about Willie Taggart. We all knew it had to happen. And you pointed out there, if Florida State scores a touchdown or holds Boise State short on one touchdown, they win that game. Wake Forest, if we stop one field goal, we win that game. And then all of a sudden that blowout loss to Miami, while it sucks for us as you and I as FSU grads and as FSU people here, while it sucks for us, we're still 6-3 at that point instead of being 4-5. Willie Taggart got fired because we were 4-5, and because the argument is we didn't look any different against that Miami game than we did against Virginia Tech or Syracuse in the first 3 games of his time. That's why he got fired. I don't think he gets fired and we've said Florida State was 3 plays away. Wake Forest game 1 play, Virginia game 1 play, Boise State 1 game away from 3 extra wins this season. I'm saying give me 2 of those games, and we're a 6-3 team as opposed to a 4-5 team. I think people are pissed that we lose to Miami, but I don't think Willie gets fired at that point. But to touch,
I don't think Willie would have got fired. I'm just relaying the facts.
Agree.
But the fact that you lost those games and you looked the way you looked against Miami, it was time to make a move.
But you can't say that. But what I'm sitting there saying, I'm not saying you said this. I'm saying we heard this all along here. Is you can't say there was no improvement, because there was definite improvement this season, as opposed to the getting blown out by Virginia Tech, getting blown out by NC State, getting blown out by Syracuse in the 2018 season. So I think there was improvement, but I think he got fired because it was not enough of an improvement because that bad Miami loss. I think even if we lose a close game to Miami, I still think he probably gets to keep his job, but I think it's because of that blowout loss. But I'm going to point out what you said, because what you just said about the recruiting aspect and what the comment on the screen, I asked Mark to put this comment back up here where it says somehow Miami signed best 2 running backs in South Florida.
They signed Parrish? They signed Parrish?
Not Henry Parrish, but they've got Don Bailey Jr., or excuse me, not Don Bailey Jr., the kid
Cheney.
Don Cheney Jr., yes, the kid from Berlin Jesuit, and the other kid who was committed to us. I think it's Jalen Knighton, who then flipped over there. Those guys signed with Miami because A, Miami's going to be on TV every week, and B, because of what you just said. The assumption, and it's the same assumption of a decent amount of the recent kids who signed with FSU, is we're going to immediately come in there and it's going to be just like it was when you played, James, just like it was in the era before, just like in the era from Miami in the 90s and the 80s and the early 2000s. They think it's going to be so easy and whatnot. I chose to go to FSU as a student because my parents went to FSU. I was raised as a Nole. And the second I got accepted, even though I got accepted to Miami, I got accepted to Florida, got accepted to Northwestern, North Carolina, USC, I got accepted to all these schools, and I knew I was going to go to Florida State because I had that love of FSU. there is not so much there are very few guys in that 2020 class, the 2019 class for FSU, the 2018 class for FSU, of student athletes who grew up rooting for FSU, who grew up wanting to play for FSU to the same level that there was. And I'm not saying every member of your signing class in 2002, James, was a diehard, grew up, born and raised Seminole, but there was, I guarantee you, more people in that class who grew up with a desire to want to play for FSU than those in the current class, because it's for a lot of guys, it's about whether it's because of your socioeconomic background growing up, because of, and we talk about Cam Akers. I understand why he left early. I didn't want him to leave early. I didn't want him to not play in the bowl game. I think if he plays this bowl game, we destroy Arizona State. But I understand why he did it, why he left early, and I understand the circumstances and whatnot. But there's also is not that loyalty to FSU the way there was back in the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s for whatever reason. And we can that's a perfect off-season segment we can talk about later.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's an interesting one because we don't know if those kids arrived with that loyalty or not, or they just arrived on campus. They love the coaches, they love the kids, they love the locker room, they love the campus, and then they just fell in love with FSU football and chose to fight for it. Or maybe they arrived with that. I'm sure it's a combination.
But I know, for example, Don Chain Jr., for example, I know people I work with at the TV station I work with here in Miami, whose kids go to Berlin, who know Don Chain Jr., who know that he didn't grow up a Miami fan. He chose Miami because he thinks that's the best place. He's going to play 3 years. He's going to be on TV all 12 games, 13 if they make a bowl game. And that's to him is the ultimate goal. Is I'm going to get on TV. I'm going to get my exposure. I'm going to get to the NFL. I don't give a damn about wins or losses. I give a damn about my numbers. And I understand that, and I understand that's where college football is right now. And I agree with it to a certain extent because I do think players should be paid a certain amount. So I understand why there is that sentiment. But that's why, to answer that guy's question, why Miami got two of South Florida's top running backs. It's not because Miami is in a great offensive situation right now. They're an offensive joke. They were even before that Independence Bowl. Dan Enos, bye-bye, you're shown the door. Manny Diaz, I think his seat just got even hotter than Mike Norvell's or Willie Taggart's was this season, I think, because there was a lot of hype and talked about the new Miami and whatnot. But I think that's why they get those guys. That's why FSU got a decent class in 2020 as far as those guys. It's because it's not a loyalty to FSU or Miami or Florida or Clemson or anyone else. It's what's my best place to get 3 years, do my best, get exposed, and get to the NFL. That's where we are right now in college football, for better or worse.
And that's true. I also think Miami has done and Florida as well, has done a much better job with alumni relations. So what does the university do for me when I'm done? Miami fans idolize, and especially their greats. There's nothing that could stop a former Miami player, from going on the sideline to a game. Whereas there's a lot of loopholes to go through that with FSU, and you don't really get a chance to see as many of the greats for a variety of reasons. We could blame Tag. It was guys who complained about that under Jimbo. There were guys who complained about that under Bobby, not necessarily coming back, but more so every time they came back, somebody from boosters would have their hand out asking them for money. Mm-hmm. So, and plus Tallahassee is not as big of a destination. And I think like UF does stuff like every year, they give alumni gear. Like I saw a lot of guys, they had the Jordan brand. A lot of their alumni got a package with those Jordan sneakers that a lot of Florida players. And again, like I used to tell a guy, Trey Hackett, who worked for Coach Taggart, and I was like, you'd be surprised at how much a sweatshirt would go, how far that would go with an alumni. But and then but what you do see though is the fans do appreciate the alumni. So like when a Travis Johnson comes out there and he says, hey, it's time to go, or where you see other guys come out there on Twitter and say those things, the fan base kind of comes behind it, and that makes your job hotter, which is it's a catch-22. Embrace the old ways, you better win. Mm-hmm. Don't embrace the old ways, you better win. But I think you see a lot of guys who do want to come in again from a majority of that 20 class to stay committed. It speaks volumes, because this is the first class that saw FSU not go to a bowl game, that saw FSU have its first losing season, and they still chose FSU. And Jalen Knighton was there for the long run until we, as an administration, took our time to hire the right coach, per se. But I think that's what you got to do. And I think if you listen to people say, and it's been spread around a lot of the different message boards, it's becoming the new Odell Gatorade story, where everybody says the exact same Odell Gatorade story that I've heard since 2001 when I was being recruited. There's no way that story happens the exact same way every time. But
every year.
I digress. The Mike Norvell story that I heard from Brian Robinson himself when he was recruiting it, and I put in the fifth quarter, speaks volumes of why Mike Norvell, at least on the recruiting side, can be successful, especially if he wins. It's the energy, the confidence, and the way he describes what he's going to be able to do and how he was able to bring himself up from a group of five and to be able to be successful. Those are the things that I believe will have people buy into it. People buy into the coaches, and there's nothing we could. I bought into Bobby Bowden. I didn't know what Florida State was until I found out about Bobby Bowden. Consistency is the key. Consistency and the feeling that this is going to be here forever is going to be the key. And that's why you have Alabama having the run that they have. That's why Clemson's having the run they have. You know your system, you know what you want, and you know what that player looks like. And those guys can look back 5 to 6 years and see that nothing has changed. Mm-hmm. Everything remains the same. And then what ends up happening is you bring in guys that understand the standard. And it's not just, the standard isn't just talk. The standard is to be upheld by the players. The players have to govern themselves. When and this is where it comes in recruiting, and this is when you play for your school. I remember my freshman year, all heads were shaved because Ty Williams said all heads were going to be shaved. People didn't jump off sides to get penalties because you were afraid that Ty Williams was going to slap you upside your head because he believed in the logo and he believed in being the Seminole. And I think, that's why we talk about mat drills. Mat drills is where this stuff is instilled. Shaving your head is, believe it or not, they call it hazing now. I call it tradition building. And those are the ways that you develop pride. Those are the ways. It's the small things in the offseason. And that's why I said this offseason, FSU is going to have to do a major psychological and a physiological transformation. They're going to have to get.
Now, I will say one thing and we talked about this last week. Logan and I were talking about this.
Better in the weight room.
I think there is a certain point, though, where we just lost James. James is not here. But I will say this to a certain point, though. James made a good point, though, but he also talks about how there's a lot of players, a lot of the past players and whatnot. Ed Reed, after the Canes got smoked, hey, he's back. James is back. There we go. Ed Reed, after the Canes got smoked by Louisiana Tech, and I will say that they got shut out 14-0. After they get smoked by Louisiana Tech, he comes out on Twitter and says, well, at least we beat FSU. He got murdered for that in the press down here, basically saying, okay, yeah, you beat FSU. That's great. You beat your rival. You also went 6-7 and lost to FIU, a Duke team with a losing record, and Louisiana Tech. You were 0-2 against the Sun Belt this season.
And Georgia Tech.
And they lost Georgia Tech. But, yeah, you lost to a horrible Georgia Tech team, a Duke team with a losing record, and you were 0-2 against Conference USA. I apologize, not the Sun Belt, Conference USA. I think there is a certain point, though, where there is a decent amount of FSU fans and fans who do considerably live in the past. And I've heard comparisons of Mike Norvell comparing him to a young Bobby Bowden.
Please stop that. Please stop that. I need you to stop that.
And I agree with that. And that's the point that I'm getting to. There's a certain amount of people who sit there and say, oh, well, it's the same way, coming from a group of five school, comparing that to what West Virginia was in 1976 and whatnot. No, first of all, it was different reasons why he came here. There was a different background, different whole storyline about why he left West Virginia to come here. There is a certain problem with living in the past. There is a certain problem with we got to bring back all these former players as assistant coaches, bring back whatnot. I agree with James. There needs to be more of an outreach to bring guys back, to make guys feel more welcome to come back to Tallahassee, come back more welcome to the program. Because there does. You do need to listen. I guarantee you, running backs will learn from guys like James, learn from guys like Warwick Dunn, guys, defensive backs will learn from Dion, not just the big names, but everyone, the Stanford Samuels Sr., these guys who will come back and can impart this wisdom. But that being said, there is a danger to living in the past, because I think there is a certain extent where Jimbo Fisher was never going to get out of the shadow of Bobby Bowden. even with winning one national title, he was never going to get out of that shadow. And to the same extent, Willie Taggart. Oh well, FSU should automatically win 10 games because we did it for 14 seasons from 1987 to 2000. That was 2 decades ago. The last season was 2 decades ago that happened. There are freshmen on this team who weren't born during that dynasty era. And you're going to sit here and compare that time. This is a different time. This is why I say we need to be very cautious with Mike Norvell. I think that, if we say right now, okay, Mike Norvell, what is your ceiling for next season? And we say, okay, 8 wins is your ceiling. I think we need to be happy if Florida State wins 8 games next season. And I think if they win 9 games, great. Hell, if they win 10, 11 games, I'll take that. But we need to be realistic with what we are and say that if Florida State goes 8-4 next regular season, that we as a fan base are not going to be disappointed. Because from that 8-4, you can only build from there. Maybe in the 2021 season, we're a 10-win team. We're an 11-win team. We're competing with Clemson for the ACC. We just have to be realistic and realize, and as much as it pains for me to say this, we are not the FSU dynasty era teams. And the sooner that these delusional fans who happen to be part of our fan base realize that era is not coming back at this moment, then we will be realistic and we'll be better off as a program.
I agree. Gentlemen, hope y'all have a very, very happy, very merry, whatever it is, end of 2019. I got to go pretend to know what I'm talking about with NFL coverage. But I appreciate you. Appreciate you, Mark. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Jason, man. Appreciate you got all FSU fans, man. Go Noles. All we can do right now is be positive.
Happy New Year, James. Thanks for the time, man. We appreciate it. Big Game James Coleman. Catch him on Twitter, Fifth Quarter College Football. That's Jason Parker, Chop Chat. Check out his work right there in covering Florida State athletics and, of course, wrapping up the football season and looking forward to anything else that transpires between now and the second at National Signing Day, the first Wednesday of February.
This was my last game as the man at Chop Chat. I don't.
Well, I didn't know if that was out there.
Yeah, we put it out there today. So okay. Yeah, I didn't have to write up a post game. I don't have to spread my words. This is now where I will spread my words on FSU athletics on MarkRogersTV.
Well, fill us in on the entirety of the work, the various services and where we can find you and so forth.
Well, you can find me here with MarkRogersTV, but I'll also be basically what happened is, for those who know, and if you can read it here on ChopChat.com, 2019, thank God this year is over. It was not the greatest of years for me, both personal life and whatnot. So just taking some time off from doing Chop Chat. I will still be writing for NBC6.com, NBCMiami.com. I'll be here with you as long as you got me, and who knows what the future will hold. But for right now, check me out at NBC6.com. Check me out here with MarkRogersTV every Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever the hell we're doing this. And we will go from there. But yeah, so I will definitely, though, still be repping the Noles here in the 305.
We've got 130 on the line. And for anybody who just joined us, this happens all the time where we've got most of the people joining us late. All you need to do is wait until we conclude, and then you wait for the video to post, and you can catch what you missed. And we need the obligatory post from Kyle Pickett, VP 2020 run. It's officially 2020 here in a few hours, and we can get started on that, Kyle.
Have you announced yet what you're doing?
I've not announced. Kyle has announced for me.
But I don't, like, I could say I'm running against you because, we're different political affiliations. That's fine. I still love you no matter what. I could announce that I'm going to run against you, but until we file the paperwork, it doesn't mean crap. So have you officially announced you're going to run for VP?
I have not.
Okay. You might want to get on that.
I'm taking the temperature out there on the level of support. I've got one so far, for sure. I don't know if that's going to carry me. It might be difficult to build any kind of momentum off of that.
Yeah, I don't think I can support you. I'm not sure. I got to see your position on issues, but I don't know.
Well, the support of one, Jason, is not you. It's Kyle there.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You're going to be stuck at one right now. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're at one.
I'm sure your daughter, is she old enough to vote?
Yeah, she can vote. And my son.
So there you got 2. So you got 3 right there.
Right there.
2 votes. 4, including
I
yourself.
could round up a few more than that if we're going to extend. I don't have a large family, so just the 2 kids and a brother and a sister.
That's 6.
And a mom and a few other people that I think are close enough to me that I think I can count on their vote. I think it might break double digits.
We can get you to a dozen, not including the Ohio State fan base, the Kent State alumni groups. We've got you here. We've got you for a good 1,000 or so. I think we can get this.
More importantly,
Yes.
much more importantly than that, as Jason states, we are here to talk Florida State football each and every week. And I think we've locked in on a Tuesday night for 2020. So Tuesday nights 2020, that's a 7 p.m. Eastern time. So anybody that's joined us right now, please, if you love Florida State football, if you just love college football, you can check out the live chat and see we got fans from all over the fan bases of the Power Fives and beyond. So jump on in and have a big time.
More importantly, which week am I going to skip this year, or will the streak go all 52 weeks in 2020?
This is edition 32. Jason is a perfect 32 for 32.
How far does it end? Do I go? I mean, 3 is my lucky number. Do I stop at 33? Do I continue 53 with my football number? Do I go till 53? Where do we stop?
I think that's best left up to the live chat room for them to conjecture on when the streak will end and why it will end.
Week 1.
That would be more interesting.
I have somebody who wrote week 1. It should have ended. Okay, so, we're a little past that point, so sorry about that. Sorry.
You know you're doing your job when you've got detractors out there. We all have them, or we should have them.
You're not doing it right if you don't have detractors.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mark, what are you doing to celebrate the New Year's?
I have worked every New Year's Eve since I can remember, probably for the last 15, I would say. The last time I went to a New Year's Eve party was about 15 years ago, and I've worked as a worldwide leader because New Year's Day has been more important to me. Christmas Eve, so we have select holidays we can take off, other holidays then we have to work, and I've had to pick and choose. So my New Year's Eve my Christmas Eve is sacred. My New Year's Day is sacred. Therefore, I've worked New Year's Eve, and my party days have been long since over because of that. Now we'll see what happens next year, but I'm actually going into work tonight.
You, sir, are an American treasure.
Well, I think most people would stop short of that.
I don't have to work till 6 a.m. tomorrow, so I may stay up. I may stay up till 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock if I'm feeling frisky. Apparently, we're shooting off fireworks already down here at 7:04. Good Lord. Shout out to the Pembroke Pines people shooting off fireworks outside my apartment.
You're welcome to take in the Texas-Utah Alamo Bowl and post a report right here.
That won't be happening, but shout out to Navy. Navy just beat Kansas State on a last second.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Did they cover the 2.5? That was my selection.
They won by 3.
So. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. And I did pick, unfortunately, Arizona State to win and cover the 3.5.
I picked Florida State to win and cover the 4, but I lost that one thanks to James Blackman at pick 6. So thanks a lot, James.
Well, yeah, Florida State could have won that game by 3 touchdowns. Just hang on to the ball, and
but they also
the defense played well. The defense played well. We alluded to it a number of times, and not just did they play well. There were a number of guys that laid the lumber. There were some hard hits out there.
They did a good job of bending but not breaking, because you could argue that 3 field goals they could have gotten blown out. So that's the thing. That's where the range of this is. Florida State could have won this game big and could have lost this game big. And I think that's basically what you saw this season from them, was either, you're blowing out Syracuse, you're blowing out North Carolina State, you got a decent win against Louisville, you're doing that, and then you're getting smoked by Miami, smoked by Clemson, smoked by Florida. So it's like, that's why I told you earlier, it's kind of this is what this season was. And it's, playing ugly early, coming back and giving us this false hope, and then the inevitable, in this case, it was a fourth quarter letdown, but the second half letdown. So I'm disappointed as an FSU grad, as a proud Seminole fan. I'm disappointed that we have 2 straight losing seasons. I'm disappointed that losing streak is now at 2 games and 2 seasons of losing seasons. But we got to look forward to 2020, and I'm going to have this positive attitude towards 2020. So As long as Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, is here, Florida State will be successful. I hope. Maybe. Hopefully. I don't know.
Well, we've been here in the past and they haven't been successful. So
Wow.
I love your logic, but
wow, so my positivity won't work. Okay, great. Congratulations. Mazel tov.
all right. I will let everyone know to please check out the videos because we have previewed just about every bowl game that's still upcoming, including the Rose with Wisconsin and Oregon, Michigan and Alabama, Auburn, Minnesota, and several more. And of course, recap many of today's games, including a very thrilling Kentucky win over Virginia Tech in the Belk Bowl. And I have selected the team that I think is a very, very dark horse in 2020 to challenge Clemson in the ACC. I'm not making a prediction about them challenging, but I'm saying that there's some slice of potential there. Would you want to gather a no? It is not Florida State.
Who the hell else would it be? There's literally no one. Virginia loses Bryce Perkins.
You're right. There is no one that I think can legitimately challenge Clemson, but I just felt as though there was a video worthy of making to see all the good things that are happening in one particular program in the ACC. And it may take a few years, not necessarily 2020.
Okay. Sorry.
I just think that North Carolina is doing some good things right now.
My question to that would be, I will say this, Sam Howell looked great in the bowl game, Military Bowl, and he had his moments this season. This will be my question. Does Sam Howell have a sophomore slump? If he does have the sophomore slump, that's where North Carolina, I think, goes down, and I don't think Mac Brown sticks around for a long time. That will be my question entering 2020.
Well, I don't believe in the sophomore slump. I'm not saying that there haven't been sophomore slumps. Of course, there have been. There have been junior slumps and senior slumps. I would just think that Sam Howell, being as dedicated to his craft and as talented as he is, would do nothing but improve from year one to year two. And they're bringing back their top two running backs, their three top receivers who are freaks. And along the offensive line, I checked out the depth chart. 4 offensive linemen coming back. They lose an all-ACC performer. But other than that, at left tackle, the offense is back. The defense looks to be in decent shape as well.
I want to look at their schedules just for one moment.
It's an interesting schedule in that, of course, the out-of-conference games do not affect their ACC standing, but they've got a date at UCF, and they play Auburn.
UCF and Auburn, and then I want to look at their ACC schedule because obviously they don't have to play Clemson for now another 6 years, so they've got that. So their schedule next year is at Boston College, at Duke, at Miami, at Virginia, and then home games against Georgia Tech, NC State, Pitt, and Virginia Tech. That seems like a schedule that could go 9-3, 10-2, but it also seems like a 5-7 schedule. That's where I say I think that's my issue with North Carolina is going to be Sam Howell. If Sam Howell can duplicate what he did this year and get even better, I can see them as the team probably playing Clemson come ACC championship time. But that a couple slumps there. If they start off 0-2, which they could conceivably, the bottom could drop out on them. So that's going to be my question. Florida State.
All right, folks.
ACC champs 2025.
This is definitely our final live stream
of 2019.
And Jason, you were the guest, the last one standing. The final live stream of 2019 here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I do have 2 other videos that we'll be posting in the next few hours. That would be a Citrus Bowl preview and an Outback Bowl preview. And then we'll all get it started on New Year's Day, and you can expect me to be right here with plenty of analysis throughout the day on the Rose Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, the Outback Bowl, and, of course, that great Sugar Bowl in which half the Georgia team has decided to sit out.
I think Baylor wins that one. And I'm not a Baylor fan, but I think Baylor wins that one just out of spite.
I have yet to make my decision on that one, but, of course, that pick will be available in the link in the description section below, where it says Voice of College Football.
Just side with me one time. Just give them a taste. It's like just give them a taste of one of your picks, and then they'll want to go to hear the rest of them. I promise with you. Give them a taste. The fans want a taste.
We're near the end of the line here, Jason. For 2019, we'll figure out a new strategy on the picks for next year, for 2020.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Jason. You are much appreciated, sir. We appreciate you stopping by each and every week and laying down the knowledge.
Mark, I can say this without fear of being labeled incorrect. Mark, I'll see you in a year.
Yes. I don't know if that will be correct. You could have said, we'll see you next year.
I will see you in a year. In another year, I will see you.
Okay.
Wow,
I'll take it.
You can't go without correcting me, people. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, his fan base. God, I'm going to let you have that moment. I'm going to let you have that red pen moment to finish 2019.
There it is. Jason, thank you. Even putting up with my red pen moment. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Of course, we're here every day, so we'll be back very soon to see all of you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's, guys.